Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Tuesday. Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad to have you guys here. Well, I let out a big sigh, and the reason why is there's bad stuff happening. And I'm getting news of it, and right here. Now, I know a lot of people might overlook this story, but this is a significant story. The canvas wheat harvest will be the smallest since 1957, and U.S. corn crop is being absolutely devastated by drought. So they're not even saying about the corn. It might be hardly any corn. And wheat is a huge commodity. And most of the stuff, do you know when you go in the grocery store, most of the stuff you eat, it has wheat in it or made from wheat. You want to have some soup. Say, well, there's not wheat in soup, Glenn. Yeah, there is when you put your soup crackers on there, And sometimes they put fillers in the soup. They're made from wheat products, so thickeners and things. Even things like soup. Bread, wheat. A lot of people don't know that. I mean, you guys think that's obvious, probably. I say bread, wheat. But yeah, all bread products made from wheat. A lot of people, really, seriously, a lot of people don't know that bread comes from wheat. You'd be surprised how many people don't know that. We're living in a generation of people, if you ask them on the streets some simple questions, they wouldn't know the answers. Anyway, moving on. I'm getting sidetracked there a little bit. This is the worst drought, and it's absolutely devastating the crops in the United States. Now, we have in Ukraine, they had an ammonia disaster just a few days ago. Some sort of pipeline that they blew up. That's another of the big producers of food is Ukraine. And I know their production is being cut, a lot of it being cut back because of the ongoing war. What all this is going to amount to is, in the world, basically, when we had open and free trade across the world, one country would produce wheat, one country would produce corn, one country would produce rice, and so on. And what would happen is it would be shared between the world here, there, and it would be shipped this way and that way and every which way, and most people got fed. But when food gets tight, to understand how this works, picture a tribe on a desert island, and the tribes get lots of food because this guy, he grows corn, and this guy over here, he grows that, and everybody's lots of food, everything's good, and they share. But when food gets tight, that's when they start to hoard on the desert island, and that's when they start to be greedy with food. One guy is without food, and he has to go hungry. And it works the same way in the world. Is when food gets tight, countries start saying, well, we're keeping our food for ourselves. We just got enough to feed our own citizens. Then the next country says the same thing. And here in the United States, what we're dealing with is, we're probably not dealing with a famine as such. I don't think we're going to starve to death. But we're not going to be able to export near as much food as we used to be able to feed the world. And there are other countries that feel in the same pinch. And so there's going to be places in the world where there's famine because by this. And the knock-on effect for the people in the first world, people here in America, Canada, Great Britain, the knock-on effect is going to be much, much higher food prices. So we read here, it says significantly higher food prices are coming because U.S. food production is going to be way below normal levels this year. This is really bad news because food prices are already absurdly high. In some cases, people are paying as much for a full shopping cart of food as they did for a used vehicle just a few years ago. It says in the old days, or I'm going to add to that. I'm going to call it the good old days. Ever since 2020 until now. We have never really established a new normal yet. Things have been degrading. There's always one thing after another occurring. It says farmers and ranchers are being hit extremely hard from coast to coast. Here's a map showing the intensely bad right in the center, right in the heart of America. And it's affecting food production in a very negative way. It says, for example, is being reported that wheat farmers in Kansas will reap their smallest harvest in more than 60 years. Kansas has been called the country's breadbasket. Now wheat farmers in the state will reap their smallest harvest in 60 years. This will go directly down the chain from farmers to consumers at the grocery store. So what happens then as a secondary knock-on effect? Amongst the population, when they have to pay a higher price, much, and I mean, we're talking about food prices might double, or it could even go more than that. And when food starts to become a significant part of people's bills, see, all the time I was growing up, when I was a young man, food was a very insignificant part of your weekly or your monthly bill. Now it's becoming more and more a bigger part of what you pay is going to food. And at a certain point, it starts to cut into your what you're making, your income, where you can't afford to pay for other things like electricity or your water bill or things like that. If all your money's going for food, and that's what makes people angry. And that anger shows itself in other ways, too, see? And they've done studies, They found that you really want to get the people angry, get them really roused up to the point where they make it so that they're hungry. When people go hungry, those are angry people. Those are the people that will that could tear apart an anvil when they're angry. They will tear the world down. Angry, hungry people. That's what happened during the French Revolution. They were going hungry. Don't know for sure if Marie Antoinette actually said let them eat cake sarcastically when they didn't have nothing to eat. She had lots of cake. But that is the general attitude that they have about the peasantry or the deplorables. Is they don't care what happens to you. They just care about the bottom line for themselves, And, okay, so I'm going to change the subject here and move on a little bit. Major NATO air defense exercise is underway in Germany amid tensions with Russia. And this is huge. It says that the air deployment exercise billed as the biggest in NATO's history will be hosted by Germany, and it got underway on Monday. The Air Defender 2023 exercise is set to run through June 23rd and was long planned, but serves as a showcase of the alliance's capabilities amid high tensions with Russia. The first planes took off on Monday morning from airfields in northern Germany. Some 10,000 participants and 250 aircraft from 25 nations will respond to a simulated attack on a NATO member country. In other words, Article 5. They're going to show what they can do in Article 5, if Article 5 is invoked. It says the United States alone is sending 2,000 U.S. Air National Guard personnel and about 100 aircraft. The exercise is a signal above all of us, a signal to us, NATO countries, but to our populations that we are in a position to react very quickly. It says what we would be able to defend is the alliance in the case of an attack. German Air Force Chief. This is a real hotbed over there in Ukraine right now. They ran nuclear war simulation things. What would trigger a nuclear war? And one of the things that came up that could trigger a nuclear war, and this was before the war in Ukraine, was a war in Ukraine. It was one of the scenarios that they ran that triggered World War III, like in their computer simulations and stuff. So this is very serious, because basically they're not really on the ground boots fighting and stuff like as in World War III, NATO against Russia, etc. It's not really. It's NATO against Ukraine, but it's as close as you'd ever want to come to some sort of a conflict between superpowers. Right now, that's where it stands, and this puts us very close to midnight. Anyway, moving on today and taking a look at the silver price. What we're seeing is 24.05 on the silver price today, and it's unchanged. But by gosh, it sure is volatile. Look at these spikes in the green line here. Boomada, boomada, boomada. It's very, very volatile right now. A lot of volatility in silver. Let's take a look at gold and see what gold's doing today. Gold's got the same volatility. 1959 right now. It's up $1.80. Taking a look at cryptocurrency today, and Bitcoin hasn't been doing so good the last few days, but it is holding its own around 26,000. 26,084 for Bitcoin. Ethereum's not doing so good right now at 1742. Taking a look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and she's up 188 points at 34,254. So Dow is up a little bit right now. Let's take a look at the 1 day and see how she's going here. Yeah, look, she's shooting up the Dow today. Let's take a look at the crude oil today. Is up $1.92 at 69.04. It's been hovering around the $70 mark the last little bit. Now let's take a look at bonds and rates, and we're seeing falling yields today. We're looking at the 10-year at 3.74. It's down 2.5 basis points. And the 30-year is at 3.89, and it's down just less than 1 basis point, 0.8 of 1 basis point. Taking a look at the U.S. dollar index today at 103.17 and falling today. Prepare yourselves for, honest to God, guys, it almost served you better if you went out and bought wholesale bulk food and put it away rather than silver. Because I think it's going to double in probably the next year or more, maybe 3 times. It's going to go up. If you buy some canned food, it's going to probably go up more than anything else you could buy. It's probably going to double or triple in price. So basically, if you buy a $2 can of canned corn and put it away, the only problem is the long-term store of value for food is different in silver, and canned food and things, they have an expiry date. That's the fly in the ointment. Otherwise, I'd be stacking corn. Heck, I mean, if it didn't have an expiry date on it, if it was like if a can of corn was like an ounce of silver and it would never go bad ever for the next 30 years or whatever, I'd be stacking corn. And I'm quite serious about that. But being as they all have expiry dates on them, I mean, I'm just joking around with you guys, but you guys have a great afternoon. And we'll catch you guys on the next show. Bye-bye.